classes, social slime, they don't matter, genocide. Sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care. Caesar shit, force of air, fuck them back, it's only for they bomb. They shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids. No one makes countries lie to your face, fight and die, cause God forgives. Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower classes, social side, they don't matter, genocide. Sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care. See their shit, force a bear, fuck them back, that's only fair. They bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids. No one thinks countries lie to your face, fight and die, cause God forgives. Yeah. Coming back around again.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Game On. It is the 27th of September of 2015. The Pope's still in town. I think today is Blood Moon Day, if I'm not mistaken. We will start there today. Pope Francis, again, I was talking about his clown last night. Met with victims of child molesting priests Sunday on the final day of his U.S. visit and promised to hold accountable those responsible for the scandal, delivering a powerful warning to American bishops accused of covering up for pedophiles instead of reporting them to police. The pontiff disclosed the gesture of reconciliation at the start of the meeting with U.S. bishops gathered in Philadelphia for a big rally on Catholic families. Francis praised the victims as true heralds of mercy, who deserve the church's gratitude, and said sex abuse in the church can no longer be kept a secret. He promised to zealously protect young people and to see that all those responsible are held accountable. Francis has agreed to create a new Vatican tribunal to prosecute the bishops who failed to protect their flock by covering up the pedophilia of priests. This is just really tough to read. Victims' advisory groups had complained earlier in the week that Francis had neglected to address their plight when he had congratulated bishops for their courageous and generous response to the scandal. On Sunday, he directed his attention to the victims in a city hard hit by the scandal. The Archdiocese of Philadelphia has been the subject of repeated grand jury investigations, and a Monsignor was convicted of endangering children by not removing pedophile priests. Later Sunday, Francis was scheduled to visit a prison and celebrate a final mass on U.S. soil on Philadelphia's grandest boulevard, the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. Organizers said they expected 1 million people to turn out, but there were fears that the extraordinary security, including airport-style bag searches, crowd control, cattle chutes, and blocked-off streets, would scare many away. Roman Catholics from across the country and around the world began making the trek to the Mass hours ahead, crossing bridges on foot and packing subway cars. At the Koran Fromhold Correctional Facility, Francis planned to visit with 100 inmates, including suspected killers, rapists, and mobsters. Must have been all priests, were they? He was expected to offer them words of hope, forgiveness, and redemption. His mission is the marginalized and the forgotten, prison spokesman Sean Hawes said. From our understanding, he wants those who are in custody to know that they are not forgotten and they can be redeemed. Prison ministry has been a hallmark of France's pontificate. He meets often with inmates. He has washed prisoners' feet during pre-Easter rituals. He opposes the death penalty in all circumstances and has called for the abolition of life imprisonment and solitary confinement. On Saturday night, Francis was cheered by tens of thousands at a music and prayer festival on the Parkway, waving to the crowd in his open-air Pope-mobile. The performers included Aretha Franklin and Andrea Bocelli. He called families a factory of hope, even with their imperfections. Defend the family, because that's where our future will play out. Defend the family. Thomas Correa, dentist and family of four, father of four, visiting Philadelphia from Sydney, called Francis the most inspirational and amazing pope that could breathe life into this church of mine. And I'm so grateful to have a leader like him who's so humble and such a true servant of God. It's been a common sentiment throughout the Pope's visit to Washington, D.C., New York, and Philadelphia. It's the wave, it's the smile, said Tom Ambrose, 52, of Hayden Heights, New Jersey, attending the Festival of Families on Saturday night. It's what he's articulating, that the church needs to step forward and needs to change its thinking about things. Oh, that hurts me when I have to read crap like this. You know, I got to go back up here a bit. Francis praised the victims as true heralds of mercy who deserve the church's gratitude, and said sex abuse in the church can no longer be kept a secret. Now, how are the victims of pedophiles from the church become true heralds of mercy? What, because this sick-ass priest was looking for some kid to jump and was either bought off, the families were bought off, the police didn't make the arrests. I mean, who runs the police? I mean, there's a red mass and a blue mass. And the red mass is for the politicians who are liars, thievers, deceivers. And the blue mass is for the police and the armies and that who protect the asses of the politicians. While these priests are out running around having their way with little children. And this dick's allowed to walk around with huge security forces protecting him as the head of this sick group of people, pedophiles, politicians, lawyers, bankers, and so on and so forth. I'm sure somebody can come up with a song there someday about that, and the sooner the better. If you know, I forget, I read one time, quite some time ago, the percentage of priests who are caught up or have been labeled pedophiles by the church and people and the police and the politicians. And so we always know, you know, anytime you read some data, you know, take wife abuse or that, or any kind of sexual abuse or that, they always say that the number that actually come forward with a complaint is extremely small compared to the actual numbers out there. So if you use the same kind of data sets, that we would think that a great majority of these so-called God-loving priests are caught up in pedophilia, which now is in the schools, called sex education at an extremely young age. So this guy has no credibility. You know, he was at Washington, D.C. That was his first stop. He's wearing dog tags, which are signify military. And he's talking about the fact that he and the church care about the poor and the underprivileged. Well, these are the very people that the military machine is bombing the snot out of. So the man has absolutely no credibility whatsoever. His message has no credibility. And the man ought to be in jail, okay? Because he is a deceiver, and to deceive is a deception, and deception is fraud, and fraud is a criminal offense. So Pope the criminal, Francis, is wandering around spreading a message which is completely false, and well, the man's full of crap. And so are the papers that present this nonsense, and so are the police to protect them. This has to come to an end. And so, they made an excuse why, they're waiting for 1 million people to show up, and then they turn around and make the excuse that maybe they won't get 1 million people because the very people that he's espousing should be free and full of hope and all this kind of stuff are being locked down in cattle chutes and invasive searches and so on and so forth. So, again, that's another bit of propaganda fraud. And it doesn't matter if 1 million people show up anyways, you cannot call this any kind of a success because there are 310 million people thereabouts, give or take, whoever's coming across the borders today. Who knows? The numbers go up and down. But that is a very, very, very tiny percentage of the people who call America home, okay? And that's a fact. And fewer and fewer people attend the church. And why is that? Because the church went out of its way to run the people out of the church, okay, as they destroy the message in the King James Bible, okay, and turn it into a hedonistic society, okay, where you, me, my stuff is more important than your neighbor. Okay, and they've destroyed the family on purpose. Okay, so you have this floating mass of people who really don't have any directions in their life, right? And you think about, my niece said this to me one time, and I thought rather prophetic. She was quite young at the time. We were taking some photographs of her down at the beach, and she was thinking about becoming a model. And we were talking about some stuff, and she says, if I get this kind of figured out, like you're born and you play around as a child, and then you go to a school where you don't want to be, and then when you come out of school, you get a job you don't want, and then you do that, and then you die. And I said, pretty much. Well, this sucks. Well, yeah, it does suck. Because once you're born, and somebody comes over and says, can you sign here to the mother for these benefits for your child, it's over. Unbeknownst to your mom and dad, you've just signed the child over to the state. Now it's property of the state. So you follow the rules and regulations of the state, which say that they'll let you play in the backyard at your mom and dad's place till you're 4 or 5, and then they're going to bring you into the school system, at which point they control every aspect of your life, and then you die. And so she was absolutely correct on that. We got to break that. We really, truly do, and I think we're going to. I brought up last night about the Finnish people standing up at the border and not allowing the migrants in. None of those people were carrying weaponry, right? They weren't there to shoot anybody up. They just went there and said no. And I don't know how many times I've said that. Then the magic word is no. Okay, the people decided that the politicians are liars and deceivers and thieves, and that the churches are lying to them. And they just took it upon themselves to walk up there without armament. You know, they weren't wearing face masks, and they weren't wearing, what do you call those things, bulletproof vests or anything. Just people, family people who understand what's right and what's wrong, and just walk up to the border and said, no, you ain't coming in, and turned them around. And that's all that really needs to happen, is that the people stand up and say, no, we get it, and the answer is no. You've had your way with us long enough, and we're much more powerful than you, simply because there's more of us, and it's our boots on the ground here, and we're laying claim to this place because possession is 90% of the law. We possess it. We built everything on it. Therefore, everything we built belongs to us. And have a nice day. And we are going to institute a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And the rest of you guys are likely going to end up in jail. And they will run like the scared little bunny rabbits they are. And I do believe that we can turn the so-called police protectors of the fraudsters against the fraudsters. People pick sides once the tables start to turn. The weak, the mindless will always jump sides when the time comes. Someone who's been a cop for 20 years will denounce the police force once he sees the tide changing. And most of those people that are cops, nowadays, they're vetted. They're looking for psychopaths on the force, people who will go and beat up grandma and not even worry about it. They get a kick out of it. These are the people that ought to be in jail, but instead they're getting a really good paycheck, and they get to run around and abuse people. That has to come to an end. So, anyways, tonight's supposed to be, I understand, I had this up somewhere here. Another thing I saw last night that really, really irritated the hell out of me. After I did the show last night, I usually kind of just hang out and come down so I can go to sleep, and I'll look at a few things here and there. So I just happened to see a video last night, and I don't know if I still have it up or not. I'm going to take a quick look for it. And yes, here it is. I was rooting around and over on YouTube a bit, and I saw in the sidebar a video called "Bringing Family Planning to Remote Lao Villages." And this really ticked me off. This really, really ticked me off. They got some guy, and these are villages, and they're spread all over the place. The landscape is absolutely beautiful, all trees and hills and mountainous, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And so they got this guy wandering around, giving out the pill, and condoms in this remote village. In fact, I think this is actually probably worthwhile sticking in the chat, because this is another UN program. Now, these people live in these villages, and they live a rather rudimentary life compared to what we do. But they get along with it. This is their life. This is what they understand. And they've been doing it for centuries. And no problem. But the UN wants everybody registered. Okay? They want everyone to have a legal identity. That's what the game's all about. So they send this guy, and I cannot read or I can't understand their language, so I don't know what the actual people are saying to the questions in that. So I don't know if they've interjected stuff in there or not. But it just kind of reminds me of this. It kind of reminds me of what they did here. Way long ago, the mothers, the wives, the ladies, were usually the family had certain jobs. Okay, the man's job was to go out and get the food, or to build the house, or to work in the fields, that kind of stuff, get the food in. And normally the women would have the role of preparing food and raising children and whatnot. It's a give and take, a yin yang, whatever you call it. It makes a partnership, and this is the way it always was. And over here, they started pushing this thing that women shouldn't have as many kids, and that they should be out in the workforce, and they'd have more stuff if the lady was working, and so on and so forth. And this is the same thing now they're doing in these villages. Exact same game, and it's UN sponsored, and they telling people. The story I keep seeing throughout this is that the women are really happy that they're not having another child, so they can go out in the fields and help their husbands, which somehow is going to raise their economic position, right? Because the legal identity is all about economics and of course, control. And so now you must submit to these controls once you've been sucked into the situation. So, but the thing they don't, because all of this stuff, all of this propaganda, all of the data is laid on the side of influence, and only the data that they can use to influence is ever brought forward. This idea that women throughout history have done nothing but raise children or had nothing but a gazillion kids is absolutely ridiculous. If you look at the real data throughout history, some women had 10, 12. We actually had a family here in town who had they had 18 children. Now that must have been wild. I have family who my aunts and uncles and my grandparents now had anywhere from 9 to 12 kids. And I don't recall them bitching and complaining about it, ever, just the way it was. But at the same token, I have relatives that have 1 kid, 2 kids, no kids. And they didn't plan parenthood, okay? It's just the nature of the beast, if you will. Some couples seem to be extraordinarily fertile, and if they look at each other, somebody's getting pregnant. And then you have other couples who struggle to have a child. So this idea that if you don't have Planned Parenthood, you're going to be bound with 10, 12, 18 kids, whatever, is a complete, total pile of bunk. Again, as all of their nonsense is bunk. It's all about them getting into people's minds and corrupting their minds and manipulating their minds so that they come into the global citizenship fold, if you will, and they now are in slavery to that legal system. So they portray this as a very sad state of affairs for the women, and that the women are all seemingly extraordinarily happy that they're not going to have a child, and they can go out in the fields and work alongside their husbands. Well, anybody who knows anything about pregnancy knows that that's a load of bunk. You know, my mom, when she had her last child, my sister, who just happens to be 11 years younger than me, and, it came as a bit of a shock to my mom and dad that, we thought we had our 3 kids, but apparently not. And would my parents have given up, well, it came as a bit of a shock. I mean, my mom continued to work. She was still working. I think she went from work to the hospital to have her last child. my aunts and uncles on the farms. I mean, the second you get pregnant, you're immobilized? Of course not. But that's the picture they try to paint, right? And it's not the truth at all. It's all about getting control. And that's all it's ever been about. And it really ticks me off that the last vestiges of freedom, if you will, for these people is being taken away from them. I mean, these villages have been having children for like ever. And then all of a sudden, it can't work. And you need Planned Parenthood through the UN. And this is how they infiltrate. And that's how they've always infiltrated. And it's all about flattery and benefits, and in the end, slavery. So that's that on that. Take a booth. That really pissed me off when I seen that last night. I hate propaganda. Okay, let's go. It's a blue moon day, so let's go look at a blue moon. Like, why did the Pope decide to come here during a blue moon? Why does the Vatican have a telescope called Lucifer? Why are these men of God abusing children? I mean, how has this last this long? How have people turned a blind eye to this nonsense this long? You know, I remember when I was a kid, and I went to church when I was a kid, and you would hear these things, and you'd hear the parents in that whispering, "Oh, that's just terrible! Isn't that just terrible?" Well, it's just one of those, you know. It's not the church in general. It's just one of those, and it's unfortunate that particular priest or whoever felt he had to do that to a child or whatever. Not saying, why is the church protecting these clowns? Why are these clowns not weeded out of the church? No, there was always an excuse. Turn a blind eye to what's right in front of your frickin' face. And, you know, so if you're still going to church, folks, okay, and you believe in God, and you believe in a creator, trust me, that if you're sitting in a church today, which is Sunday, or you've just come home from church, and you're going to discuss the wonderful message the preacher talked to you about today, probably something to do with the Pope being in America this week, and all the wonderful things the Pope has said in that. Understand that your preacher is a liar. Plain and bloody simple. And so if you are going to a church and you believe in a creator, then you best get the hell out of the church ASAP. Let no man deceive you, folks. Well, you've been deceived mightily by the church and your preacher, because that's his job, or her job, is to deceive you, just as the Catholic Church is, and the Vatican and the Pope's job is to deceive you. I mean, these guys flip their messages like people change underwear, for crying out loud. And takes things that you were taught by the church were absolutely not normal and brought them into a moral position. And normalized what was not normal. And through propaganda and continual messages, eventually those attending the churches accept what was absolutely unacceptable. You give that some thought and wonder why it is you're sitting in the church. It's really sad, man. Anyways, what else we got here? Origin, the term, the suggestion been made that the term blue moon or intercalary month arose by folk etymology, the blue replacing the no longer used belu, which means to betray. The original meaning would then have been betrayer moon, referring to a full moon that would normally, in years without an intercalary month, be the full moon of spring. Well, in a clear year, it was traitorous in the sense that people would have to continue fasting for another month in according with the season of Lent. Anyways, it goes on. So all it says really quickly is that the blue moon rose from folk etymology, and the original word blue, or the word they use now, blue, replacing the no longer understood or used B-E-L-E-W-E, meaning to betray. And so it is a betrayer moon. So with that understanding, it makes perfect sense that the Pope is in America during a blue moon, because the people of America have been completely betrayed. And the head of the triangle, if you will, the Vatican, is the house of the betrayers. So it would only make sense that the Pope would be in America during the betrayer moon time. Yeah. I mean, the fact that these guys got a telescope called Lucifer, I mean, geez. What's it take, people? What does it actually take? Now, you know, I didn't have a lot of time to look around this morning, but you know, words now pop into my head. But I mean, if you punch in blue moon as a satanic moon or something, then you will, you know, come up with all kinds of things. I didn't put in about paganism. I didn't have time. Let's see here. The blue moon. There's some films, so there's got to be some propaganda in here somewhere. The Moon is Blue, 53 movie starring William Holden. Blue Moon Investigations is the name of the detective agency in the TV series Moonlighting. That old show with Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis. Blue Moon appears as a significant element in the 2011 film The Smurfs. Now, I looked into the Smurfs, and the Smurfs hat goes back to the French hat, which goes to Marxism, and it's a little children's show, propaganding away. And let's see, the blue moon is viewed in the movie, the Smurfs TV show also featured the blue moon in an episode. The theme song of The Sopranos, Woke Up This Morning, by Alabama, 3 references, Blue Moon in Your Eye. Once in a Blue Moon is the name of an episode for a TV show called Charmed. Charmed, Betrayed, which involves 3 witches being affected by the blue moon magically and turning into monsters. Okay, so it makes perfect sense as to why the Pope is on American soil during a blue moon. Now, I don't know what time he's getting out today. I'm not even sure if today is the blue moon. I think it is. So the question is he going to be there when the moon rises? Or is he going to vacate the place just prior to? I don't know. I have his schedule. I'm going to time to look it up again. But it's all bad news anyways, right? It's just bad news. Okay, blue moon is 9:07 p.m. To 12:27 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, yeah, keep an eye on what time Mr. Pope is going to be heading out of town. So if we put in blue moon and pagan, we come up with all kinds of stuff. The white goddess, Wicca, This is all paganism. Is basically earth worship, which is what the environmental movement is based on, and they wish to bring us back into a position of worshiping the creation and not the creator. And it's about witchcraft and all that kind of stuff. So, it is what it is, and it's all what it is, and it's just a continual deception of that we've been under for so long. Yeah, okay. We're going to do this soon because we don't have a break here, although I'd really like to take one. I'll have to see about getting some break music at the top of the hour or something. I got a guest coming on here. I just want to touch on one more yeah. So I just want to touch one more thing here. I was going to bring my guest in a little bit sooner, but I just really want to touch on one more thing, and that's the origin of family names. My guest today is going to be a gentleman, and he's alive. He's not. He's. I don't want to. He's going to have to explain this to you himself. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but we have Pope Francis. We have Queen Elizabeth of Windsor. But if I use my name in that formation, then I get somehow, I don't know what that's all about, I get labeled a free man. Even though, and that's a negative thing, apparently, even though free man is mentioned in the Canadian Constitution. So this is how badly they mix their terms in that. So my guest today is he kind of runs with the same name lines as Pope Francis and Elizabeth of Windsor, and his name is Vinny the Snitch. So I'm going to get Vinny on here in a few minutes. I just want to run through because this kind of plays into this as we get into this, and that's the origin of the surnames. Because the surname is the name that tags you to the legal system, and why that is, and how it is that some people get to wander around. If I get pulled over by a cop and he says, can I see your ID? I said, well, no, but what do you want to know? He said, well, I want to know, your name and that. And well, fine, my name's Ronald John, and I may say of Renfrew, which is where I was born, and he's not going to accept that. But I can come to America and wander around all I want as Pope Francis, and nobody asked me to identify myself any further, or the Queen of Windsor, Elizabeth of Windsor, and nobody bothers me about it. But see, originally, the original family name, surname, were only for aristocrats, and then it was brought down to our level, and it was simply a registration process of which they could give us a legal title, and that is what you live in all the way through your life. You live as a dead fictional legal name, and you cannot buy or sell without it. So, when people say, the mark of the beast is going to be a chip or a mark on your hand or a tattoo on your forehead or whatever, Okay, the mark of the beast got here long time ago. But then again, not that long ago. Okay, because according to history, what I have here anyways, and you would have to look up some very old books and that to find this out absolutely for sure. But the history of the given name having been used from the most distant times in to identify individuals, that would be me, Ronald John. The advent of surnames is a relatively recent phenomenon, and that is basically the advent of the lawyers and the bankers. In Britain, hereditary surnames were adopted in the 13th and 14th centuries, which isn't that long ago. Initially by the aristocratic, but eventually by everyone. By 1400, most English and some Scottish people used surnames, but many Scottish and Welsh people did not adopt surnames until the 17th century or even later. Henry VIII, I can't remember if it was Henry VIII or which Henry got taken down to the Vatican and kind of got a spanking. And told him that they're ruling the show, and he could keep his castles and keep his personas and all that kind of crap, but to understand who's running the show here. Okay, ordered that marital births be recorded under the surname of the father. In England, and cultures derived from there has been a long tradition for women to change, yada 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 yada. So actually, the surname, at least in the West, has not been around that long. And this is after the signing of the Magna Carta, where the people went to King John and put their foot down and said, we're going to put up with your nonsense, and the lawyer's nonsense, and the banker's nonsense. So these are the new rules. And they went out and they slaughtered every lawyer and judge they get their hands on. And apparently they got their hands on a pile of them. And when they were satisfied, they had basically run them out of business. They went and got King John to sign the Magna Carta. Now, it was back in 1200, whatever. And so up until that point, this idea of surnames and that really wasn't around. And then the lawyers came back and explained to King John that even though he said, I can't do what you want because I've signed this, I made an agreement with these people, which the lawyers said, well, you did it under duress, therefore it's null and void. And in they came again. And we have been legalized since. Okay? And we need to throw that away, okay, because that's basically your slave paper. So that covers that as much as I want to cover today. And if I can find my guest, and I hope the phone lines are working today, I really, truly do, because I'm going to introduce my guest here. I think. I'm waiting for a note. I did that.
Just say it. He's running a little late.
I did that. Oh, my guest is running a little late. Apparently, I just got a call. He's in a conference with the Pope at the minute. So my apologies for that. We'll take this to the top of the hour. And, yeah, we only got 10 minutes at the top of the hour. So we'll take this up to the top of the hour. And hopefully my guest has had time to speak with the Pope and hopefully tune him in. Before he comes on air with us today. So, anyways, the bottom line of this whole situation is We've all been lied to since the day we were born, because I don't know anybody that was born, 14th century. So all of us that are on the planet now, were born into a fantasy world, if you will. And it is that fantasy world that rules our lives. Reality does not rule our lives. Fantasy rules our lives. The legal system is amoral. It is all built on concepts and abstracts, which are thought, ideas. And so these very manipulative people come up with ideas. They write it down on paper, and then they turn it into what they call a law, which is not a law at all. And then they make us submit to it. And that's just so freaking wrong on so many levels. It is so, so wrong. My family name, Stevens, apparently when I looked that up, actually came from one of the ship captains, who was Stephen, with a PH. And he was one of the boat captains for William the Conqueror. Now, Conqueror is hardly a last name. I mean, that's what he did. His name was William, and he was called William the Conqueror. And Stephen, who was one of his ship captains or whatever, that name became a surname down the road somewhere, Stevens. My first name, Ronald, comes from a Viking background. So, that's if we go back to our history, what the lawyers did was they just made data sheets, right? Well, what does that guy do? Well, he makes barrels. Okay, call him Cooper. This guy does what? He builds stone walls. Okay, call that family mason and attach it to them, right? That's what they did. They decided what your surname is. Your parents didn't decide it. Their parents didn't decide it, and their parents didn't decide it. The lawyers decided what your last name is. And then they attach that in their fantasy world to that name and puts you into a subservient situation through that name to the so-called rulers and the parliaments and the state governments and the federal governments of the world. And you abide by that, okay? And every time you break one of their laws that they made up in order to create cash flow and take away your God-given rights from you, and they drag you into the court, they might as well drag you on over to Rome there, or the Catholic Church, where you can pay cash for your sin. Very convoluted system that we live in. And it really irritates me when I see an outfit like the UN going into these villages that have been there forever, with people who knew how to use their environment to their benefit and live within their environment to their benefit and the benefits of their families, getting hoodwinked into this nonsense of Planned Parenthood. It makes me really, really ill. Because, right behind them is Gates boys coming in with the needles. And they'll give people some stupid-ass idea, or they'll get somebody sick in one of these villages, just like they did with the Indians. They're the native people here. And they will start shooting them up. And they'll give them some lame-ass excuse that because you've been isolated so long and now you're in contact with other people that you may not have a immune response to something they carry, that now we need to needle the snot out of you just like we do everybody else. And away they go again, destroying another group of people. And it's very, very hard to deal with. So we know what we know, and people know more every single day. And I just want to look this up here. Now, when I go to etymology and put in Blue Moon, it says 1821 is a specific term in this sense very rarely, perhaps suggesting something that in fact never happens. Compare at the Greek calendars and native in the reign of Queen Dick, I should call him Pope Dick, and St. Geoffrey's Day. Never there being no saint of that name. Reported in Gross. If they say the moon is blue, which is spelt, which was deception, we must believe that it is true. I like that. Though this might refer to calendrical calculations by the church, thus the general rareness sense of the term is difficult to disentangle from the specific calendrical one commonly interpreted as the second full moon in the calendar month, but actually quarterly calculation. In either case, the sense of blue here is obscure. Literal blue moons do sometimes occur, but under extreme atmospheric conditions. Okay, so the church is using the blue moon and whatever to betray. That was the word. So if they say the moon is blue, BLEWE, we must believe that it is true. This is the church telling you a lie, betraying you, but we must believe that it is true. And so that's the whole game of the Pope being America is mass betrayal and lies being spewed from every direction, but you must believe it is true because it's being spoken by the Pope. Yeah, amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Everything is written down someplace. That's the beauty of it. And I cannot encourage people enough to spend more time researching. It'll freak you out what you come up with. It's all written down. Most of it is hidden from us because if it was out in the newspapers, I mean, if the newspapers actually presented a true picture of why the Pope is on American soil, trust me, the reporting would be completely different. But then again, the newspaper people are the prostitutes of the rich men. And so it all works out for everybody except you and I. Yeah, I see a thing here in the chat that Prince Charles will never be king. Too bad. I take it that he's being sarcastic when he says that. But but he may end up in some kind of a, with the years this man carries on, I'm not I see in the future even if he doesn't become king, we can always make like a royal Dumbo cartoon or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of funny that way that these Prince Charles doesn't give a damn if he's the king or not. I mean, that whole chapter of history is coming to a close now. You see, you can't have kings and queens when you have a global government. You can't do it. It doesn't fly. Okay? So this whole, like, Queen Elizabeth is now the longest serving British monarch. And I think she's, 89 now or something? Her husband's 91 or 2. And he's the nice guy who started World Wildlife Fund in order to run that, him and Prince Bertrand, I think, who started that, another one of these tax-exempt foundations, to save the polar bears, but that was just set up as a front for the eugenics movement. The Queen's husband, Prince Philip, says that he wants to come back after he dies. He wants to come back as a deadly virus in order to cull the human population. So, nice bunch of people. They're basically Germanic background. All of these royal families are of Germanic background. And so this idea that the Queen of England is basically German, think about that a minute. And so it's coming to an end. There will be no more royalty if we allow them to move forward with their goals, and that is their world government. You don't need a king and a queen if you have a world government. What you need is a global trust and administrators for the global trust, and that's what you're going to end up with. And those at the top of the global trust, because they have control over everything and everyone on the planet, they're the ones that decide what you eat, how much nourishment you actually get, what your vitamin content will be, how much water you're allowed to use, how much fuel you're allowed to use, and so on and so forth, what your education is. And they've already got total control over that. They've had total control over your health system, your food system, your education systems, and all of these different systems that they've set up over the years. They already control all of that stuff, right? But now they want to grind you into the ground. And that is where the environmental movement comes in, that if you harm anything in the environment, then it's a crime. And they decide what that crime is. They decide what that punishment is. We were talking about housing, me and someone, and, we were goofing around. I went back to my hometown to look at an aerial view of the Renfrew Fair, which is still running, still 5 days, still a great fair. And I went to look at the house that I grew up in until I was 8 years old, and that house is still there. It's been redone the outside and stucco and whatnot. But when I lived there, it was an old house. It was a stacked cordwood house in town. The old garage across the street from me had one of those almost like a Western motif false front fronts on it, so you didn't see the roof. It's still sitting there. It's blue now, so then I went to the other side of town where I moved when I was 8, and the house, a nice little brick bungalow, and it's still there. It looks just as good as it did the day it was built, and so I moved there when I was 8. I'm 61 now. And this idea that you can't cut trees down is the most ridiculous thing I ever heard in my life. They're trying to put people into shipping containers from China, used shipping containers, that are too far gone to use as shipping containers anymore, and stacking them up and using them for housing for poor people and native peoples in that. Because you can't cut a freaking tree down. Well, spruce trees don't take that long to mature. So, if I look at the house that we moved to when I was 8, which was a brand new the house at the time, things in perfect condition, and it'll probably stand there another 100 years. So probably you're going to have at least 3 or 4 tree cycles for spruce from the lumber that was used to build that house has been regrown naturally 3 or 4 times since. So this idea that these are non-renewable resources, as they like to call them, is just another load of bunk. If you don't use the tree, then it will grow up and it will die and it will fall down and rot. And you got no use for it. And God forbid when it rots, it releases CO2. So that makes trees very, very dangerous. So, it's all lies all the time. And we got to get over that. Like, as far as I see, when I see native people saying, the government didn't give us good water and the government didn't build us houses, I don't even know what that's all about. Okay, you got a reserve of X hundreds or thousands of square miles or whatever. Grab a chainsaw. Go build a house. Get a drilling rig. Drill some holes in the ground and get the water. I don't understand this, but see, this is all about the false benefits in that, and we got to get over that. And there isn't a chief that I'm aware of the native people that is working for his people, just like there's not a politician working for his people. These people all work for the system. The legal system, which keeps people like the native people in these communities that don't have proper housing, don't have proper water, or plumbing, or systems to get rid of the sewage and the sewage systems and that. Well, go build it. Do what you got to do to get what you need. Do you think that the president is going to live under those conditions, or a prime minister somewhere is going to live under the conditions that so many people are forced to live under? Not a hope in hell. So why does anyone else put up with that nonsense? There are more resources on this planet than you could possibly shake a stick at. And the resources are, for the most part, renewable. Water is completely renewable, and always has been. And I've used this before as a thought process, that if you go down, I don't remember exactly what the name of the aquifer is. Somebody probably listening to the show does. And but there is an aquifer, and I believe it's on the border of Paraguay and Argentina. And that just happens to be where Pope Francis is from. He ought to know that. And he's telling us that we have to be environmentally friendly, and we've got shortages of everything, and yada, 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 yada. Well, that particular aquifer down there, when I looked into that several years back, the bushes seem to have a big, huge chunk of ground right next door to it. And so does the guy that run the Moonies or whatever, Sun Moon, has a big chunk of ground down there. So the Pope obviously knows it's there. But that particular aquifer, they did some calculations on it, and they came to the conclusion that the amount of water in that particular aquifer is enough water to supply every man, woman, and child on this planet with, I think it was 200 liters of water per day. That's one aquifer. And these dipshits are telling you that we have a shortage of water. I don't know. I just gotta, yeah, just a second here. I have a note in here from some time ago in the chat saying when I click on the link, I get a map of Sudbury where I live. Well, is that the link I put in there about Planned Parenthood? I don't know, but I didn't put any link in there unless somebody else put a link in. But I don't know what that's about. Anyways, I'm going to make another shout out to find out if I can get a hold of my guest. All right, I'm going to do this a little different today. I'm going to I really need to have a couple drags on a smoke, and so I need someone to in the chat to type yourselves a song or something, because I'm going to take about a 2-minute break here, and that means we're going to hit some dead air. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just gonna. I haven't done this before in this show, but I'm going to do it today. I'm going to take a really, really fast break, and then I will be right back. So hang with us. This is Game On, your host Ron Stevens, and I got to say, I can't say it any other way. I've done a lot of different radio shows, and been party to a lot of different chats, and this is the best. So. Yeah, we changed up here. I can't smoke in the house anymore, which is okay with me. I don't have a problem with it. And I'm too far away from the window to have a smoke out the window, so I'm going to boot it over to the door. Anyways, everybody hang in there. I'll be back in probably 2 minutes or so. Okay, we're back. Thank you very much. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Game On. I did have a smoke. First time I've ever done that on this show. And let me have that. It's a beautiful day out, and the sun's shining, and so on and so forth. So I'm having trouble right now catching up with my guest. Hopefully, we can get him in here yet, and get some of his thoughts, which would be nice. Other than that, the phone number here is 1718-717-8296. If someone out there in the meantime has some thoughts on what their feelings are on the Pope being in America, I'd like to hear that, because I know if I was an American and this guy was running around here wearing dog tags and saying what he's saying, which goes exactly against what the church basically was supposed to be about in the first place, I'd really like to hear some thoughts on this, because as far as I'm concerned, the Pope, on the one hand, being a deceiver, he's actually, as far as I can see, because they basically flipped the whole idea from creator to creation, that you bow to the creation, not the creator. And I would think that an awful pile of the people in the so-called church have got to be going, what the hell is going on here? So it's kind of a half and half situation. Can the people who for generations came up through the Catholic Church or any other church and were under the impression that we had a creator, and that we're not supposed to harm people, and we're supposed to treat each other as we'd like to be treated, and to come to the assistance of those who have less than, and all this kind of stuff, as we watched all these wars play out over so many years and continue to this day. To have the church all of a sudden saying that we must become stewards of the land, and environment trumps everything. In other words, the creation is now who we must honor and obey. It's just such a flipped message. It's ridiculous. It's the old 180 flip, and I don't know exactly how the American people in general are going to take this. But we hope, or I hope anyways, that this is the big turning point where people understand so I'm thinking that this is the turning point where people finally get it. Take the attitude of the Finns. Now, I saw somebody left a link in there last night when I was doing the show, when I brought up the Finnish people. And while I personally have never looked into it, someone had put a link in there about how the Finns took on the Russians, and showed them the difference in the peoples, and basically pushed the Russians back. And that would have been a big job. So once you decide, no, it's not going to happen, then it's not going to happen. This idea of asking permission or asking a government agency that is doing opposite of what they're supposed to do, and then waiting around for the next election to elect someone you hope will do something different, when in your heart you know they're not going to, makes no sense. So this is the era of the rising of the people. And when I say that, I keep saying, and I'm hopeful, I believe what I'm saying, is that we can do this without a whole lot of violence. Just like those Finns walked up to the border and simply said no. We don't care if you're the government, okay? Governments come and go. Understand that. Governments come and go. But the people always have their feet on the ground. And therefore the lands and everything else belong to the people, because there would be nothing there without those people, and nothing would have ever been built, and there would have been no society or anything else without those original peoples. And therefore those peoples are the ones that are the government. And when the government is going against the wishes of the people, then the people have every right to basically ignore the government, of which the Finns proved the right thing to do on the border situation, because if the people hadn't done what they did, then those migrants would now be on Finnish soil, of which they are not. And yeah, it's up to each and every man and woman, wherever they live, to understand what we're involved in now. And the propaganda has been applied upon us for generations and generations. And they did it in such a fashion that was so incremental, most people didn't even notice it happening. And now they've pushing so hard to try to get to the end of this that they've gotten incredibly crazy and believe that they don't have to do this incremental anymore. They just come in and finish this up and have their way. So each one of these stupider moves they make, and each one of these news reports that is even more incredulous than the last one, the people are saying, you know, we can't swallow this garbage anymore. We just can't swallow it. And so we have to step forward. You know, people are all jacked up on Donald Trump because on one side he's waving the Bible, on the other side, let's go shut the border down. It all sounds good, but the man's just a player. He's a mouthpiece for the game. And it's all about that constant chaos. You know, like we're standing on quicksand all the time. And the more we thrash about, the faster you sink. So you know, get your feet on the ground, on solid ground, and understand what's going on, and make the decision that what's going on is detrimental to everybody on your lands, and I don't care where you live. It's detrimental to you and your people and your societies, and you have to step up now. You have to step up now. These clowns are heading for the Paris conference, which they hope to finish crossing the T's and dotting the I's. And while you were never told, or the general public was never told, what exactly is going on, like I said last night, the legal system, those that the villagers, they refer to them as villians, thought they had solved the problem when they went on the manhunt for the lawyers and the judges during King John's Day, thought they had fixed the problem, only have it come back and bite them in the ass again. So we know from history how we got where we are. We know what the problem is. Okay, and we have to move that problem away from us. It's like this virus that you just don't get over, you know, and there is no vaccine for it. You know, well, there is a vaccine for it, and that's the people coming together and say, you know what, we get it. The answer is no, hit the road, vaccine, or not vaccine, but virus. The legal system is a plague upon the people. And it's just as detrimental to the people as the smallpox virus was to the Native Americans. It will wipe you out. And that's that. And so we have a cure for it, and I suggest we get the cure and start using it. And there's nothing more homeopathic than a group of real people, not the legal fictions, but the real people, to stand up and say no. That's a homeopathic cure to every problem that ails us. I saw a report that they were talking to American people about if you put a fence along the southern border of the United States, should there be a northern border? And some 40% of Americans answered yes, that there should be a fence on both borders. Because if we fence the southern border, then these migrants, immigrants, or whatever, illegals, will penetrate the United States from the north. Well, then you have to ask yourself, well, don't you need a east-west wall as well? Don't you need an east-west wall as well? Because if they can't get through from Canada and they can't get through from Mexico, well, maybe they'll come across in boats across the Pacific and the Atlantic. So now you're boxed in. And this was the whole idea behind the idea that if your nation didn't become a member state of the United Nations, then that would be exactly the position that you're in, because you wouldn't be trading with any of the other partners. And so if you look at it from that side, you become nationalized, if you will, and they will close you off from trading with the rest of the world. They can't do that, of course, but that's what they say. But my thought process on all of this is it's a good thing, because we need to get back to our grassroots. And if it takes an exclusionary process, so be it. Through that process, what we would be forced to do is we would be forced to begin manufacturing again. We would be a hands-on country again, where we engineer and build and construct and grow for the needs of our people, which has all been taken away through this internationalism. All manufacturing jobs go to the lowest cost factor of labor, period. And the only way you can compete is to bring your labor costs down equal with some Far Eastern country that doesn't pay its people anything. Well, you can't survive that either. Now, why are the immigrants coming across the border from the south in so-called waves? Why is that? Well, obviously there's something going on in their country that is not working out well for everybody. Now, is that a mistake? Is that just something that happened? No. The Mexican people, as far as I can see, generally are just like anybody else anywhere else on the world or in the world. They just wish to get on with their lives and live their lives and live in the communities that they lived in for centuries. But that wasn't allowed to happen. Okay, what you did was, Mexico, and like most countries were mostly rural. Okay, they were mostly rural. Now, Mexico, I looked up some years ago at the number of different kinds of corn they had there. It was amazing. Each region had its own breed of corn, which grew particularly well in that particular region, and it fed the people, and they traded their crops amongst each other, and so on and so forth, and they lived a full, healthy life, eating healthy food and drinking good water. And then along came Monsanto. And they got rid of all the regional crops and ended up either buying up the farms, or the farms were given over by the government, or whatever happened there. But those families all through Mexico who were rural people were basically driven from their land. And just like everywhere else, they were driven into the cities. And now they're out of their customary positions, or what they're accustomed to, what they understand, and now they're into these cities, which makes them an easy mark for the international corporations to move manufacturing plants out of Canada and the United States into Mexico, where they have this abundance of basically unskilled. They were very skilled in the businesses they were involved in for centuries with their family businesses and that. But now they're into a place that they don't understand, and then they are manipulated. And so the companies, and this is written up in the newspapers, this is great, such and such a big international company or American company or Canadian company is going to move down to Mexico and help the Mexican people out of poverty. Well, these people weren't in poverty. Poverty is an odd an odd word, because if they were my aunts and uncles, who some of them still run farms, you could hardly call these people wealthy, but you certainly couldn't say they were in poverty. It depends on the terminology you attach to the word. These are very vibrant, extremely healthy, happy people. They lived on the land that their forefathers cleared, and they certainly weren't wealthy. They certainly could not be described as poverty-stricken. They had ample food, and it was real food. They had ample water, and it was good water. And they had families and neighbors in their community who were always there to help each other out if someone ran into trouble or some calamity happened, a barn burned down or whatever. So you couldn't call those people poverty-stricken. And nor were the Mexicans who lived in the rural areas living their lives as they'd always lived their lives until their lives were brought in and came in and destroyed their lives, their way of life. And now those people are run off the farms and into the factories, of which the international companies who ran them off the land in the first time once again take advantage of them and use them as cheap labor. Now, when some of those plants from Mexico move over to somewhere like China, which has even cheaper labor and is more a strong father, the environment likes to say, nobody can compete with us because we have the cheapest labor on the planet. Okay, so now the Mexicans don't have their lands in the rural areas. Now they're stuck in these cities that are growing every day and getting more impossible to make a living in. Are encouraged through the same guys, by the same organizations that ran them off their land in the first place, to go flood America. Get jobs there. Because we need to destroy America. Because once we've destroyed America, then we can tie this up. And we can tie everybody down to our international law and our international systems. And we got them. So, it's sad on one side of this, and it's the greatest opportunity that people of the world have ever had on the other side to clean this mess up once and for all. The Mexicans need to go back to their homelands. We need to run these multinational food companies off of their land. We need to allow the land to heal and regenerate and get these poisons out of there and put these people back to looking after their own food systems. We need to do the same thing in Canada and America. We got to get back to our regional seed bases, to our regional crop basis. This idea that your regional crop can't be as sufficient or efficient as a industrial agricultural complex is a load of bunk. The fact that we need these systems, these international agricultural systems, in order to feed the world is absolute bunk. Okay, flattery and deception. And we need to get back to where we really started almost. And that is forget about the world. And this is what they always plying on you. Just forget about the damn world. The world really doesn't exist. Okay? Because you don't live in the world. You live in your community. You live in an area where you interact with the people around you. That's your world. That's your world. Okay? What's going on in the Ukraine, you can't do nothing about. What's going on in Syria, you can't do nothing about. Okay? And they've got all of everybody's eyes looking at different places where they shouldn't be looking anyways. Because you can't do a damn thing about it. You got to get your eyes and your feet back down on the ground where they belong. And that's your community. And you got to get back to growing your food for your community. And you got to get back to making sure your community has good water. Without good water and good food, nothing else matters. I don't give a damn how good a medical system you think you have or don't have. Right? I don't care how good an education system you think you do or don't have. Once you remove good food and good water from the pitcher, you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. And that's exactly what they've done. They've taken your water and they've taken your food. And they've replaced it with engineered poisons. Now, why would your government do that? Because they care? Well, I suppose one could go that route, but I don't think that's going to pan out if you do a little research. Okay? We really just got to get back to where we started from. And that is manufacture what we require, grow what we need, and make sure our water is good. You know, we step back too often. We just step back, okay? I mean, what if you were being invaded by an army, a foreign army? If you were being invaded by a foreign army, would you stand up and push it out? Would you do it? I think the answer is yes. If someone came and kicked your door down and says, I'm here to rape your wife and your children, would you stand up to this guy, regardless of what the odds are? I think you would. I hope you would. But here we are. We're being invaded by foreign armies constantly. But we don't see them as foreign armies. And that goes back to what Cicero said. And he said that a very, 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 very long time ago. And it was very prophetic what he said. And it stands ground today. It's just as important today as it ever was. That these foreign armies are presented to you as your government, as industry, as trade, all there to take you down. But you don't recognize it as such. But that's what it is. This idea that, when I was trying to get people to understand what they were actually fighting when they were trying to fight windmills coming into the areas, I still think most of those people still don't get it, and it really saddens me that they don't. This is an invasion, okay, of a foreign entity coming in here to destroy your country, your community. Okay, they come in and they destroy the communities. They separate families. If you really don't want these things, then don't let them put them there. It's that simple. Well, how are we supposed to do that? Well, if you look back, we get what you're up to. It's a fraud, and you ain't coming in here. Well, the government says we can. Well, the government doesn't have anything to do with us. This is where we live. The government does not have the power to destroy our lives, and they can't give you the power or authority to destroy our lives. And so you ain't putting them in. And again, that comes back to the word no. Then you warn them. Don't come back. And we mean it. And if they come back again, you can tell them one last time. You were here. We warned you. You come back again. You're going to wish you didn't. And mean it. Because everyone has every right to protect the lands that they're on. Now, I know by legal definition you don't own the land you're on, but that's another fraud, isn't it? And fraud's against the law. And therefore, you do have every right to defend your land, even though technically it's not your land. But then possession is 90%, and you were not, or most people were not, privy to the fraud of what this property deal is all about. Just another one of these abstract concepts. So in your mind, this is your land because you improved it and you live there. And in that sense, you have every right to defend it. And then the frackers come in and they poison the wells. They poison the water system. Wait a minute, isn't all the thing about the environmental movement about protecting the environment? I can't, there's people where I live that can't take the hay off their fields when they normally take their hay off the fields because the government environmentalists say that, well, there could be a bird nesting in there and you can't cut off the field till that particular nesting scenario is over. But we can come in and stick up all these windmills, which are known bat exploders. The bats actually explode when they hit that low air. And they kill like a gazillion birds. But this doesn't seem to be an environmental problem. But if you try to use your land, have a nice day with that. So then they don't run you off your land. They run a lot of people off their lands or make their lives completely miserable with the windmills. Then they come in and frack behind because this whole wind system is set up with backup by gas, which just happens to be a fossil fuel, which according to the Senior Policy Advisor of the Ministry of Energy Ontario, in my conversation with him, which really threw me when I was talking about putting the scrubbers on the coal plants, and he explained to me that these coal plants with the scrubbers on them are actually much healthier than the gas plants that are being installed to back up the wind generation, or lack thereof. And that kind of threw me. But he explained to me that the gas plants are huge emitters of ground level ozone and are actually, because the particulate is so fine, it is extremely difficult for the human body to eject it. And therefore, health-wise, the gas plants are more injurious to human health than are the coal plants with the scrubbers attached. So much for your clean electrical system, boys and girls. So then they come in with the frackers and they need gas to back up the wind. So they have to frack. And in that process, poison the water and the air, but mostly the water. And but you're told you can't water your lawn because you're wasting water. You didn't waste any water. You washed your car or you watered your lawn. The water goes back into the ground and it evaporates. Then it goes back up into the sky, and then it falls out of the sky, and then it comes back through, and it's all filtered through the system that's set up in nature, and you have clean drinking water once again, or clean water to wash your car or water your lawn. But they say you can't do that, but it's perfectly logical to go in and poison the ground wells, the groundwater, through fracking. Think about that. Makes no sense whatsoever. They can't justify it, but they attempt to. And the only reason they get away with it is the people live in fear. They live in fear of their government. And that's the only control mechanism they have. They can shove you around. They can shove you off your land. They can basically do with you what they will because you've given them the power to do so. Well, if we gave them the power to do so, then we also have the power to take away the power to do so. Okay? And again, we come back to the word no. You're not coming in here to frack. We looked around. This is bad freaking news. And it ain't going to happen. Now, the native peoples, I really would like to get some native people on air here. And I'm having a bit of a tough time with it. I don't know if it's because I'm generally white or what the problem is. I talk to a lot of different native groups online and that, and we seem to be on the same page more or less. But then again, they still see themselves as native peoples, not just people. And therefore, and they have the history that they know where the white man has really messed up their lives for them. So they have a little bit of that, we've been abused crap by you people in the past. So there's probably a bit of a trust problem going on. I will work my way through that, and I will, somewhere down the road here, get some native people online. I am starting to talk with some who are explicitly telling their people that their leadership is just as corrupt as the so-called white leadership is. So that's starting to make some cracks there. But this is your land. This is your life, and we have got to lose the fear. I don't know what kind of conversation went on with the Finnish people when they walked over to the border and said, no, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes there, where the government is very ticked off at these people that did what they did, but tough luck. I don't know if the Finns, said, Jesus, maybe we should make a petition, or maybe we should make some protest signs or something like that. Maybe the Finnish people have enough history still, because the invasion of Russia from Russia was still recent history, and that's like the same kind of thing. So maybe they don't live in as much fear as maybe their government thinks they do. Okay, and if you go back in American history, when they tried to force or get the Americans to sign on to the League of Nations, it failed that time, because at that time, which back in 1900s, early 1900s, that the people were being asked to accept the League of Nations still had enough real history in their minds to understand why they fought the War of Independence in the first frickin' place. And they weren't prepared to sign on. And so what was the message? No. There's that word again. No, we're not signing on. Because to sign on, we must give up some of our sovereignty. And we just fought a war for sovereignty. And the idea of us signing off our sovereignty makes no sense to anybody here. So the answer to that is no. And I think that might be the same mindset that the Finns had when they stepped up to the border and said, you know, we have a history. We were invaded. We fought back against a very formidable invader. And so I think maybe that they still have that history running in their bloodstream, that they understand that they can say no. When they know that their government is on the wrong side of a subject, that they have every right to step forward and bypass whatever the hell the government thinks it's up to, and the people at that point become the power, which they should always be. And all countries need to get the people back into a position where they are in charge. And that goes back to by the people, for the people. Anything else is against the people. So we just generally have to shake off this I'm going to get in trouble attitude. You were born in trouble. You grew up in trouble. Let's not depart in fear and in trouble. Because if that's our attitude, then those who come after us have no chance. I mean, all you have to do is look at the education system a little bit. I saw somebody put a thing in Facebook. I don't know when it was, in the last week or something. I don't get there too often, but it was about Common Core, and I don't remember the exact question, but there was some steps to it, and it was whatever. It was a simple subtraction question. You had two numbers, right? And basically, it was subtract one number from the other number, and you'll get your answer. But this Common Core thing, it absolutely blew me away. And they had these steps, but the steps didn't have anything to do with math. It was the most convoluted piece of garbage I ever saw. And apparently, this is what they're teaching the kids in the school on how to do math. Well, no kid coming through that will ever have a clue how to do math. You know, reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? You got to get that sorted out, and so they've messed that up large. And it looks like whoever put the mime or whatever we call these things up, it says, it had the steps and all laid out there on how to try to get to the answer. And at the bottom, the old method, put the smaller number below the larger number and subtract one from the other, and said, or we could do this, you know. So that's been a long time coming too, because when I was in grade 10 or something, I believe is when they started bringing in new math, which was based on the same kind of idea of 5 steps and 2 points per step. And I always just put the answer. I never have a problem with math. We put the answer down. And got really miserable marks, and asked the teacher, my answers wrong? Nope, they're all right. Why am I getting such a lousy mark? Well, you didn't do the steps. I don't need to do the steps. There's the question, there's the answer. What's all this shit? Well, you have to do the steps. And each step is worth 2 points. So the steps are worth 80% of 100%, because the answer is only worth two points. So I get all right answers without doing the steps, I get 20%. And Jimmy over there, who can't add 2 and 2 together, follows the step, never gets the right answer, he gets 80%. Well, that's correct. You got to just look at your teacher and you say, does that make any sense to you? Well, it's not up to us, it's a curriculum that we're told to teach you. Wasn't the question. The question was, does it make any sense to you? Oh, it's not about, that's not up to us. Well, I thought you were a teacher. But you don't even know why you're teaching this garbage. No, well, there's a big pension at the end if we just do what we're told to do and shut up. So we just do it. And this is what they've been doing to the children. You could probably ask a ton of teachers, what do you think of this new sex ed thing? Well, I'm not here to discuss it or think about it. That's just a curriculum, and regardless of what the curriculum is, that's what we're told to teach, and we teach it. That is not a teacher. Right? That's a very dangerous man or woman that's got a hold of your child. They're not teachers. They regurgitate the curriculum that was put in front of them to teach your children. Doesn't matter if it turns them into pedophiles or turns them into young children that can be used by pedophiles, right? It doesn't matter that anything they're being taught in the school, for the most part, it doesn't exist or didn't exist or is revised. None of that matters to the teaching. None of it. There's a big pension at the end of this if we just sit down, shut up, and do as we're told. That's damn dangerous. So, having said that, we all have, every single man and woman has an obligation to each other, and to their families, and to the lands that they live on that they refer to as their countries, to set things right. And you're never going to set them right by playing the game that they've involved you in. Okay? We need a new game board, is what we need. A game board where we make the rules. A game board where we are the bankers. Okay? Where we control the law. Because up till now, we ain't controlled any of that. And how's it worked out for everybody? Not well. And it's working out less well every single day. And they're going to try very, very hard at this Paris Convention to nail this down once and for all. No, they probably won't. But like I said last night, all these decades they've been putting this together. Those lawyers are sitting in the background writing the legalese into this international law, which your country, member state, will be party to. And these are new global laws based on environment. Okay, so like I said before, if some crackerjack who's in the hip pocket of the UN or some big company, and he's the leader of the country, and they convince him that he needs to, or they coerce him into it, or they threaten him, that he will sign on to some ridiculous law based on environment, and it passes within the structure of the international law, then that law becomes international. And you say, we don't have a law like that. Well, you do now, because it's international. And that would be, going for a treaty. Yeah, going for a treaty. I see in the chat room there. Absolutely right. And I mean, come on, people. This is a really exciting time. This is the time where the people don't want a superhero to come and save them. This is the time when the people say, you know what? We're the superhero. We're the ones to control these lands. We're the ones that live in these communities. And we're just going to step forward, and we're about to change the rules. And that's the only attitude that's necessary. I'm not going to have time to say this, but I can't remember. There was an old Clint Eastwood movie where he came back to town after he had been dragged out on a horse and left to be dead or something. He came back years later, and the town was all locked down by these banditos and that. And they had every capacity to run these guys out of town, but they lived in fear of them, and they looked up to Clint Eastwood to solve the problem for them. And he looked down his nose at them as the most pathetic bunch of pathetic people he'd ever seen, because they couldn't stand up for themselves. And then he became basically the quasi-law. And because the people was in fear, he could tell them people whatever he wanted to tell them. Whatever he wanted. I want to sleep with this guy's wife. Well, that's not going to happen. Fine. Look after the problem yourself. And they all submitted to whatever his requests were because they were too fearful to stand up. Instead of the whole town standing up and walking up the banditos and say, hit the road, or we're going to bury you right here. Take your choice. They looked for a superhero. Okay, and that's the whole deal, people. Forget. Yeah, Paint It Red. I think that's what it was called, Paint It Red. But you got to understand what you're watching in some of these old movies. I mean, they're telling you right in your freaking face. Yeah, Paint It Red. Okay? We do not require a superhero. If we think we require a superhero or we're waiting for one, we lose. And we deserve to lose. So, having said that, it's our choice. Just like it was the Finnish people's choice. Stand back and allow the migrants to come in and do your little protest and petition your politicians, or do what's required. Step up. Anyways, that's the show, and I want to thank everybody for listening. I missed out on Vinny today. I'm going to catch up with him another day. Everybody, take care. Have a great week, and at least till Tuesday. And back on Tuesday at 7, so I look forward to that. I look forward to everybody in chat, all the listeners. And again, I want to thank the bottom of my heart, why. All right? Take care, everybody. I'm out.